Hello, everyone, and welcome to Skin Happens. Today's episode is going to be slightly different. We are doing our first interview-style podcast in video today. I'll be interviewing Dr. Patricia Boulogne, and she has a great background in medicine and has a lot of great information to share with us today. So let's get started. Okay, hello, welcome, Dr. Pat. It is so nice to have you on the podcast today. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and where you're from.
Well, first, thank you very much. I appreciate being here. And I'm based out of the East Coast, and I have been practicing and been involved in medicine since 1981.
Awesome.
So more than a couple years, and I really love helping people take their health from a point of, because sometimes people don't know if they're sick, number one. And number two, it's just like find out where that starting point is that makes sense. So you wisely use your time and your energy and your money, fixing what needs to be fixed so that it will trickle over into the other aspects of what goes on in your body and for better health.
Awesome. Very interesting. So What type of medicine do you specialize in?
I am, you could say, under the big umbrella of alternative, but I'm a lifestyle medicine strategist and coach and physician. So I have certification in functional medicine, and I also have certification as a coach in lifestyle medicine. I specialize in finding the why and what's the cause of the problem and going to the root so that can be addressed, as opposed to putting Band-Aids on other things, others like symptoms, which I call sometimes Grim Reaper syndrome. And because we have symptoms, we just don't pay attention to them.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the coaching field has definitely exploded in the last year or so, and I think it is a great field to get into and definitely expand in. It is something that everybody needs to experience with, to have a leadership coach or just, a life coach to bring them along their journey. It's definitely an important part.
Yep. And also, the other concept is in that too, is that people were not used to, before COVID, we're not used to doing telemedicine type things. And when I was talking to people about doing that before, they could see me like we're seeing each other now. But there was that like, there a little bit of hesitation. Now they're saying, let's do the virtual call. Let's do Zoom. Let's do the telemedicine. And even like large hospitals like Brigham and Women's and Children's Hospitals, those doctors in a lot of those places and all around the world are now functioning out in front of their computer to do their consults and to do even perhaps some of their examination and to make an assessment about what needs to happen from one point to another with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this field?
Well, it's going to sound a little bit funny, but how I got into this field, a friend of mine told me that I had all the prerequisites for pre-med. Mm-hmm. So I should do something with those, because that was my undergraduate, was in zoology, which in those times didn't have a pre-med program, but you just took courses that made it a pre-med program. And, we went out for cider and donuts. And he said, "You're going to be a chiropractor." And I said, "I don't think so." I'm not interested in that. And then 2 weeks after that, when I was working, because I was working on an MBA at the time, I hurt my shoulder working. And so I went to a chiropractor and I just sat there, and it just was like the light went on. It's just like, if he can do this, I can do this, and I can do it better. And so, and then I applied to school, and I went, and I had some really, one of my favorite teachers, which a lot of my classmates were like, "Why do you like that class so much?" was a nutrition class. And things that he said back like in 1982, which were not proven, did not have scientific paper, all were true. I mean, based upon his research and what, he experienced and how he expressed it. It was such a fun course for me. And it was like the floodgates opened, and it's just like input. It was really great. It was a wonderful class for me. And then I found some very good mentors in chiropractic who taught me, to look, what's below the surface, what's submerged. because what you got isn't necessarily what you got because it had to come from someplace. What you got just comes from your weakest link. And knowing what your weakest link is, you can go in and you can do things with that weakest link, so you can fortify it so it becomes a non-event, and you can get on living the great life that you deserve.
So how have you've been in this industry for 30 plus years, how have you reinvented yourself kind of throughout the times and keeping up with everything?
Well, one thing is I went back to school. I have continuing education courses. So I decided to become a certified sports physician. And that was like 100 and some hours. And then I decided to go and get my certification in functional medicine just a couple years ago. And that was well into like 250 something or other hours. And then in between time, I went to acupuncture school, and I have my master's in Oriental medicine, and I also have a diplomate in acupuncture, and as well as licensure in numerous states. And how I reinvented myself by taking that knowledge, I kept on parlaying it, like what did I know before, and how does that fit into my toolkit? So one of the reasons why my book parlays into that is because my book looks at every organ system in the body, and what it asks in very high level questions about what's going on in that organ system. So you can see whether or not that organ system is functioning the way it's supposed to, which would make it a low priority, or getting a 0 would be even better. That's a good score, one of the few times. And the higher numbers indicate that there's more of a higher priority. And then you've got to take a look at how those organ systems interrelate with each other. And you can also, there's a chart in the book. So there's also a venue so that you can take, when you're asking the questions, and like if you get stuck, you can come back to it, of course. But there's a way that you can take this, and with the information on the chart, go to your doctor, your physician, and say like, hey, let's talk, let's have a real talk so that you can maximize your time, because we all know that they only have 15 minutes for you. And if you can't put in all the information that you need with a physician, then you're kind of dismissed, and you feel like your needs, and your support that you're looking for, you're not getting. So then it's like that the hamster on a wheel, and just trying to get off of that. So this helps people not have to go from doctor to doctor, helps them focus. And I also offer in here an opportunity to actually speak with me, you just to kind of piece in like what the pieces of the puzzle for them, and give people direction about what's your best next step. Where do you got to go for this, and what kind of questions should you ask for that? Because I think that advocating for people is really important.
I love how you base all of your questions and everything on how that person is feeling and localized points in the body. So for my skincare audience, how would you relate all of this to the skincare world?
Well, how I relate it is that, if you look at your skin as an organ, it absorbs 65% of whatever you put on it. So reading labels is really important, because some of the things, like when you see pegs on an ingredient, those pegs pull whatever it is that is the active ingredient into the body. And so then you have to deal with it. So there's 3 reasons why people get sick. It's either by trauma, it's by thoughts, or it is by toxins. And so the trauma part of it are the bumps and scrapes that we have, and they settle in our joints, they settle in our back. And then that sets up the inflammation process. When you look at the toxins from the food that you eat, the air that you breathe, the water that you drink, and the chemicals that you use in your life, you've got to be really conscious about what those are, like in skincare products, and read the list. You got to weigh, like, do I want to do this, and where can I get the best skincare products possible? Because it can affect your outcome of your health, not immediately necessarily, but down the road. Because there's some things I always ask people to be very mindful of, the inert ingredients in supplementation, and like in their makeup. I always say, if you can't eat it, basically you probably shouldn't use it. But I don't think I've ever wanted to eat mascara, or something like that. And mascara is such an important feature, or like eyeliner, and so having the products that are really good for you in relationship to knowing like what's going on with your skin, because the skin in relation goes back to the liver, because the liver is one of the detox organs. So when you're looking at acne, you're looking at eruptions on the skin, you got to take a look at what's going on below the surface, what organ systems are related to that. And even in acupuncture, you have all these meridians all over the place. Like, so on your face, when somebody has acne, I look at where they have acne at. And then because there's meridians for the stomach that start here and go down and around the face and then come back down and go all the way down to the second, third, and fourth toe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long meridian.
Yeah.
So you can see things along meridians, and kind of like tie them in. So it's really important that in your skincare world that that you use the best products possible, and so that you look better, feel better, and you feel great. Because when you have that sense of confidence from how you're looking, it just magnifies how your health is.
Exactly.
Right? And that's really quite true.
And I'm glad that you brought up the point of going underneath the surface for skincare as well. So many people think that skincare is just always topical. It's just the products you use. It's if you cleanse or not, if you're in the sun, but there's so much more to it. It's all of that internal work that you're doing too. And I'm sure you relate to this of just working on your gut health and like you said, the liver and everything, and how that can really affect your skincare and the outcome of your skin.
Oh, for sure. I mean, one of the first places, well, what I usually say, fix your gut, change your life.
Mm-hmm.
So you can always tell when somebody, I recently ran into a woman that I said, oh my God, you've been losing weight. So she said, but her face looks very drawn, and so I said, you ought to like check in with your doctor, because I go, and I said that to her, not as a criticism, but as a concern. And so the doctor who was monitoring her weight loss program, adjusted what he was giving her, whatever it was, because she wouldn't tell me, because she knew I probably wouldn't approve. But you've got to take a look at what's going on with the gut, because that's where your inflammation first starts. The lining of the gut is only one cell. And it's very thin. So like if you take in things that are like heavy metals, when they go through the gut barrier, they go through and if the liver can't get them back out, because the liver's job is to detox and doing other things, especially dealing with hormones with women, but it gets the toxins out by either putting them back into the colon, so it goes down into the toilet, or into the kidney to the bladder, so it's peed into the toilet, depending upon the size of them. If it can't do that and the liver gets overwhelmed, then it stores those toxins in blood, brain, bone, and fat. And those are, you've got to go deep, and it's a much longer process to help get those out of your system. But you can tell the difference. I mean, as I get older, for instance, if I eat the wrong food, or if I eat salty food, because I've always been sensitive to salty food, I can see it in my skin. If you don't get enough sleep, you can see it on your face the next day.
Marshmallow the next morning if I don't get sleep or something.
Yeah, you've got to say more than a Hail Mary, and for sure. But you have, and so having that, those components, I refer to 5 pillars of health. And, the first one's diet. The second one is exercise. The third one's sleep. The fourth one is a positive mental attitude. And the fifth one is properly functioning nervous system, which is monitored by structure, function, and posture. So if you have poor posture, I mean, anyone can look younger by doing one thing, their posture, because when they're slumped over, or like you've seen people do selfies, you're going like, what were you thinking? Pick that camera up. And, so because it affects you. So, but if you sit there and you have like better posture and you pull your spine up, then you're like, your face lifts, your eyes lift, you have more sparkle, and you have more presence. And so that's when to shoot the picture. For sure.
I definitely agree with that. Was that the fifth pillar, or the fourth of positive mindset? Because I was just thinking about this recently in my experience of when I had severe cystic acne, I felt like I would stress about my acne and it would make it worse. And when I could start managing it and I didn't have to think about it, it almost got better with more mindset. So I think that has a huge impact. Obviously, you have to do a part and take a healthier route with your skin, and if you want to
Right.
changes, but
But there's also that gut brain, connection too. Most of your immune system comes from your gut. It doesn't come from your brain. And they now know that anxiety and depression and a lot of mental illness type things come from the gut. It can change by the styles of food that you eat and what you eat, so, and how you prepare it, and quantity, not versus quality, right? You don't want to like, I'm going to have this. I'm going to go to the smorgasbord because it's all free. Might not be your best avenue because a lot of those things are like highly induced with sodium. They're sprayed. There's chemicals that are on our foods that affect us in how we age. I mean, people, my grandmother, God bless her, she's long gone, but she, when she was 94, she had no spots on her face. Her complexion was crisp, was pure. And she only had lines here because they took the teeth out up here, and she decided that she didn't want to wear dentures. But she was 94. And and I said to her, I go, my God, I go, you have the skin of a 20-year-old. She said, well, you would too if you didn't go in the sun. It was a good and she was it was a very good observation on her part. But and I inherit a lot of her good skin, and that genetic component that I love that it displays itself on a regular basis, but you've got to be really mindful about like, what your gut does, and that, especially women, because women over ruminate, right? And we take care of everybody else except ourselves, and at the end of the day, you're home, you're tired, and you open the refrigerator and you're thinking, oh, I was going to make fish tonight, but I don't feel like it. I'm just going to have something else that's quicker. And or you don't take the bubble bath, or you keep on pushing that stuff off. And so women especially do that because we have that bonding hormone that's more prevalent in our species to connect with people who we love and care about, because we want them to be healthy. So I've had so many women say to me times, my husband needs this more than I do. And I'm going, first clue that you need it more than him. And, because I help put people with that stress aspect also. I recently wrote a program that I'll be opening up in January for a pilot. And if any of your listeners are interested, if they, on the show notes, if they want to get a hold of me, it's called Stronger Than Medicine. And it helps busy entrepreneurs and executives and busy people scale their time for improved health and for improved profitability, for self-care, for themselves and for those that matter. It's a 5-week course, and it'll be fun, and it'll be jam-packed with a lot of good support, accountability, and some laughs too. You've got to have the sense of humor when you're doing stuff, for sure, no matter what it is.
I agree.
Yep.
So what would you say are your top 3 suggestions or pieces of advice for healthier skin or an overall better skin health?
The top 3 things I think are, one is to be hydrated. There's always that funny test, that you can take your hand and go like this, and it never seems that you're ever hydrated. So if you find that you're hydrating, but you don't feel like you don't have the hydration, because where the health of the cell is inside, not out, so that you can have a higher amount of fluid on the outside of the cell than the inside of the cell, that's not healthy. But in maintaining that hydration. So how you can do that as a health hack, you can throw in lemon juice. You can make your water as cloudy as you can get it down you, and at least drink a quart per 50 pounds of body weight. So a 150 pound person would have 3 quarts of water a day. That water in there is essential. You can do it before you eat also, because it'll help you digest your foods better. And it sets the tone for the right kind of acid and for the gallbladder to work the way it's supposed to, because it's supposed to have bile, so it protects the lining of the gut, and it protects the microbes that are in the gut. So that's one thing. Another thing is exercise and getting fresh air. Even if you can't, if people, because we're limited in this day and time for doing some things. So what a recommendation I have people do is to turn on a Motown song that they like, the Supremes, the Temptations, whatever it is. They're about 2.5 minutes long, and you can stand in place and you can bounce. And if you keep your hands in close to you, I'll move this down just a little tiny bit and kind of like loosely have your arms. You can punch down, up and down, at your waist, at your breast, at your shoulders, and then over your head.
Mhm.
And you just keep on kind of bouncing in place. And it's really hard to do. I have so many people, friends of mine, that when I do that, they're going, how do you, like, oh my, they're out of wind, they're totally winded. And so that's a simple exercise to increase some strength and some endurance. And then the third thing is the sleep. Sleep is important. Take naps. There's nothing wrong with taking naps. I mean, I've made it a habit, and especially when I travel, I can definitely keep to this routine. As after I have lunch, I lay down for a half hour to 45 minutes, and I listen to binaural beats. And a hack that I have for sleep is that when you're going to sleep, and if you can't sleep, because this is important for your skin, right? Because you got to have that sleep. It does a lot more than just for your skin. But if you have a ruminating thought that you can't get off your head, and you feel like you want to get up and try on every pair of shoes that you have and every dress that you have and see if something still fits you, what to do is forget about doing that. Just ask yourself a simple question. Is there anything I can do about what's bothering me that I can't go to sleep? And if the answer is yes, go do it. If the answer is no, write down what's bothering you in a couple sentences, and then say, you give yourself permission. I'm going to go to sleep now because tomorrow morning when I get up, that will be there. It's not going to go away. And like that last thing is to always start the day out with a little bit of gratitude, because peace of mind is very huge. And as far as skin health goes and how that relates to that is when you see someone who's stressed, they're like their face is all crunched up. When you see somebody who has peace of mind and who's in their vibe or in their flow, or in Einstein's time, they have, they don't look like they're going to going to have a convulsion, and in front of you, they have a much more of a, like, you have such a sweet face. It's just like, you can see that you might be the duck with, feet going 1,000 miles an hour, but you're peaceful. That's your energy.
Thank you. I love that. I love the suggestions. I think they're very practical. Everyone can do them. Everyone can drink water. Everyone can do a little bit of exercise. Everyone loves to sleep anyway. And it's those everyday things that are going to ultimately contribute to the success of our skin. So I absolutely love. What are some of the most rewarding attributes of your work, would you say?
I love, this happens consecutively. I love working with women because there's this aha moment that happens in their coaching. And because the first part about whatever you talk about nutrition, because nobody ever wants to really look at it, is like, it's boring. I got to do it. And I know I've got to get beyond this. This is why I hired you in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so let's do it together. It's a lot more fun to do it as in a group or with one other person. So, but the thing is, when women have a tendency to understate who they are and who their person is and who their personification is. So I have found consecutively, there's always like this static moment, like on the third or the fourth or the fifth call that I have with somebody, because I work with people from 3 months to 6 months to a year, is that on that particular moment, people will have this kind of breakdown. They don't want to do it. You can see that they don't want to be there. Something else happens. So I always ask them if I remind them of their mother or their father. I find out what's going on. What are you ruminating about? Like, let's talk that out, because it's going to interfere with what you're going to get from our conversation today. So, and then I take off from that and we go back to things that happened to them when they were growing up, things that stymie them moving forward and getting unstuck. So I help them make sense of some patterning and show them a better way out of it that's simpler, so that they get unstuck, they can move forward, and they start getting tangible results again. It's a huge thing. And I have people always say to me, I haven't felt this good or looked this good since I was 30, and they're 50 years old. I have women who've told me, it's just like, it's the first time I felt like me in ages. I hear that a lot. It's just like they're reclaiming control of their life. So when I have those moments, I want to get up and do a happy dance with them, and I always applaud, like, you always got to give yourself credit for any of your successes, whether they're small to you, they can be big to somebody else. You never know. And then share those successes with people who understand you. I mean, there was one time I was at my girlfriend's house and we were having girl talk. And you know how girls talk. We talk differently in a way. And men always go, what are you guys talking about? We understood what we were talking about, but he didn't. That was our, like, it's a code. And, he couldn't follow it, and he wasn't supposed to follow it anyway. But, but the thing is that where there's a way that women communicate, because when women, especially women, when they heal themselves, they heal those behind them, they heal those in front of them, and they heal those around them. And when they heal those around them and they're in that community, that's the kind of pandemic I want to create. I want to create a community that heals itself and heals it by touching and feeling those who are around them. And I think that's, it's my mission to really help as many people have that experience as I can.
I love that. I love that. So would you say that you ever have bad days at your job, or any days that you just simply don't want to do what you're doing?
I do. Everyone does, I think, but I do. And when I have those days, I swear to God, someone calls me up, someone says something, someone sends me a message, and they say, hey, I got this guy for you to talk to, or I have, X, Y, and Z happening. And, or else somebody will send me a message, they go like, how's Positive Patricia today? And I'll think like, wow, that was so timely. And, because we all have those days, and we all, and how I deal with them is I will either forge forward because I'm persistent, and I'm resourceful, or I will go out and go take a walk in the woods and go hug a tree. I used to do that in my office. I used to have a rock in my office, and I had 5 employees with me working all the time. So the rock would represent you're off purpose. Go out and hug a tree. Take 5 minutes off. Go figure it out. Well, that was great for everybody else, but I was the only person who was adjusting at the time. And, but, you would go out and you would just, I could breathe in fresh air, and I do some push-ups with my arms and then down. And I think good thoughts. Because when you have good thoughts, you can follow those with good deeds.
I think that's so important to break the stigma of making people think that they can't have a bad day or anything in their passionate career. I mean, even if you love your job in and out, you're always going to have a bad day, and that's okay. And as long as you know how to manage it and come back from that, that's the important part. So,
well, maybe the big question to ask on that is, it's like, you're having a bad day. So you're saying like, what is bad about today? And what am I supposed to learn about it so I don't have to repeat it again?
Look at the root of the problem.
Yeah, go back to the root.
Right, I love it.
But it's just like I'm very grateful for having the opportunity to be here, because when I've looked at talking about health or looking at talk about the business aspect of what I do, I always have that. It's like you can talk about it in a lot of different fashions, and a lot of times people don't relate health to their relationships. They don't relate health to their work. They don't relate that when they don't have good health, they're not as productive, and they're not as motivated. They're not inspired, and they don't aspire to a higher level of excellence for themselves, no matter what it is. And, and they get stuck and they get stymied, so, getting your feet, like maybe you might have to leave those boots that are in the cement behind, even if you love them, but it doesn't fit, moving forward to being, happy, healthy, and having great habits, and then sharing that wealth of health with other people.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today on the podcast of Skin Happens. It has been such a pleasure and such an honor as the first ever interview style podcast. So can't wait to do this more. And I will definitely link all of your information below for all of the listeners to come find you and ask you questions themselves. So it was such a pleasure today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.